There. See ya. Nice to be seen.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, you know how to make a girl's life easy.
And you'll see me disappear again at 9. I apologize ahead of time.
Yeah.
Name here. Should be good to go.
No offense calling in. We didn't hear from him.
I didn't hear from him.
Okay, I'd like to call the City of Geneva IDA meeting of June 3rd, 2022 to order. We have some administrative reports to start with. First, the minutes from the May 2022 meeting that we held at the GEDC. Has everyone had a chance to look at those? I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes. So, RJ, Rick, second. Any corrections or discussions on the minutes? Everything seem okay? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So passed. All right, the financial report. Tracy, do you want to get into just kind of going through those?
Sure. Not a ton to report. We did get the rent check from Downtown Winery for May, and then there was the administrative services for MRB Group, but otherwise no income or expenses. So not much has changed since last month. We are very close to having a final audit document, which means filing Paris reporting. The documents they were waiting for from the lawyers and the bank all came in, so they're just tying up the last loose ends, and I should have that very soon. One thing to start thinking about as well is that our CD, the IDA CD, matures on July 8th. So we'll need to make a decision about what we want to do with the CD. If we want to just carry over what's there, if we want to put more money into it. So we can either address that at the next meeting, or I can work with Irene between now and then to.
I think the finance committee can make a recommendation. I think that would be good.
Okay.
Seems like there's no reason to keep that much money in the bank account, so it'd be probably good to roll some of it into something that's a little bit more useful.
Yep.
Was there a P&L that came out in the email? Or a profit and loss statement?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Looks like Ben's joining us here, maybe.
I think this is actually either Miles or Craig.
Yeah, Miles is here.
Okay. Good morning, Miles. Okay, so any questions about the financial reports as they were submitted a week ago? Thank you, Tracy, for doing everything a week in advance and makes it useful. Any questions? A motion to approve the financial report of this last month. Rick, thank you. Second. Lowell.
Second.
Thanks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now on to the updates. City School District, we see that that person hasn't joined us. Marina Lee, is she new then?
Yeah, the representative switched over to, I think she's their business.
Okay. All right. Well, Miles, it's timely for you to get on with us. We have the GDC report.
Yes, would you like me to touch on anything specific or?
Well, we did get your written report, which we appreciate. Looks like there's very little activity other than the kitchen, the City of Geneva lease for the kitchen. Some of those things got taken care of. There were some cleanup issues that the city,
Yes.
Joe Venuti.
Yes.
Yep.
had made comment of, and they were taking care of quite a bit of it. Is that moving along, or where you sit with that?
Yeah, so we did a couple of final walkthroughs with Real Eats and kind of pushing things to the finish line. So yeah, there was some stuff that was left over and some in barrels there that was from, before our time there. So I don't know where they actually came from, but they had them tested, and I think they're remediating that problem right away, and they'll get that stuff out of there. And the rest of it was, just making sure that the kitchen was in the right condition to hand off to the next tenant. And they came through on a lot of their promises, put in about $25,000 worth of brand new doors in and out of the kitchen. So that was great. We didn't have to chase them around for that.
That's great.
And, some other minor cosmetic things, cleaning, painting, some, they did a good job moving out, but they had to recertify the equipment that it was working properly, and we were waiting for some reports on that. I think there's just a couple minor things left that were more outside removal of some dumpsters or grease bins that they had, and we're pretty much at the finish line.
Did the fire department come back with what's in those 55-gallon drums? Has that been?
Yeah, I have not seen the report yet, but I know Joe might have if it has been produced.
Okay, I know the origin of that might be difficult to determine. There's also some containers of old TVs and stuff, and I don't think it was in that it had to be in that area, but not part of the kitchen. But any resolution on that, or any idea of what's happening with that? Having to do with
they were old memory boards, I think, from some. They were duplicates, probably a good 100 to 200 of them in a large cardboard box, same area as the drums of fluid there that we were testing. So I believe either a recycling company is going to come get those, because no one seems to know where they came from or what they are. Could have been left over again before our time, so we're a little in the dark on.
And Finger Lakes Table, FLX Hospitality, are they getting? Have you heard from the city whether or not that's moving forward, or how soon it's moving forward?
Yeah, I believe it is. I think they're very anxiously awaiting that. I have them stored on site at the moment, ready to transition into that space. So I think I heard maybe mid-June here would be the handoff date.
That's great. Okay. Any other issues that you want to bring to our attention? Thank you for providing the reports. They're complete. Sounds like the Principal Logic is into their extension on the lease right now, and they're still using the space and producing out of the space, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. There was also a question that we had from the marketing committee about the marketing of the property. So we appreciate you including that. We had Maureen on a call a couple of weeks ago, and that was brought up because it was part of the marketing of the property was part of why your group was selected. So
yep.
I was unaware of this effort from Metro Collective that you were marketing through that. It just was something that we didn't know about. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And
we try to leave no stone unturned. We get we have a lot of traditional marketing outlets in addition to, I did just have some connection with a couple new possibilities. I haven't met with them yet, but we'll maybe add that to the next report when that comes out. But we've been steadily getting some good leads, and some are long term through not for profit agencies, like the Arc of Ontario County was one that comes to mind, and that could be a long wind up for them because they have to go through their board and their machinations to get to that point. But they're interested in some other showings with some Hobart professors that were interested in another project that needs some funding on their end too, but they were very gung-ho about the option. So
That's good. Well, we're going to be, the LDC and the IDA have a joint marketing committee that we're putting together some different marketing materials, whether it's print or video or whatever. I mean, there's a few things that we're going to be doing, and certainly a GDC is part of that. So I think we might be folding in some of the information you have here into that. So it was good to see that that was at least has been ongoing, but we're going to be making a little bit more focused attempt to market not just the GDC, but the rest of the city properties. So anyway, we'll probably be leaning on you at some point in the future.
And quick question. What goes into the labor line in this P&L? We don't have a labor expense. We usually average about $3,800. So while it shows a net income for the month, actually without the labor expense, we're.
Did you hear that, Miles?
Yeah, you know, I would have to drill down farther on that. I don't know if I can answer that question off the top of my head, but I can answer. Let me just look at it real quick here.
With the financial statement, can we get a GL? So we can see.
Yeah, we should be able to do that. We can expand that further. Yeah, I don't know, you know, in terms of me commenting on that without, you know, it's just a number on this ledger. It's hard for me to say exactly, but I mean, yeah, there's, you know, labor between probably more geared towards the, you know, the 2 employees that we have on site, and then some of our other, you know, Webster Properties labor that's factored in there, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we just didn't recognize the expense for this month. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions of Miles before we let him go? All right, Miles, thank you for stepping on the call. We appreciate the update and continue the good work.
All right, thank you, everyone. Be well.
Okay, thanks.
City Council reports, Steve. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Keep me busy, and it's a Friday and sunshine. Number 1 on the list is we're very pleased the city manager search is completed. If anybody hasn't seen the news in the paper or anything, the final vote was unanimous to appoint Amy Hendricks as the City of Geneva's new city manager. She will start June 21st. Amy is already working with staff and making arrangements to meet all the department heads, staff, and city council to get up to speed. There will also be a schedule to introduce Amy to the community boards and commissions. So we hope to bring her out and introduce her to everybody in the community. So we're looking forward to all that. She's got some getting up to speed to do. We also had the Marina Project continues on next steps. A recent public meeting, Lowell was there, provided updated information for the community. As the project comes closer to reality, there's a funding gap of $200,000 that will be evaluated for possible construction modifications or reach out for possible grants. And, you know, we're looking at 2023/2024, so there are opportunities. You know, Senator Schumer is trying to put a bill in front of the Senate to be able to have some monies available for recreation activities out on the lakes. And he kind of poked at our beach as an opportunity maybe here. I was disappointed that he did the presentation in Canandaigua with their gazebo. But hopefully in the future, we can kind of maybe leverage some of that for the marina too. DRI is in full force, as everybody gets to see on a daily basis. 5 and 20 is well underway. Downtown area is waiting for some final components before they can move the orange fencing. So we're looking forward to that, to kind of get that orange fencing down and get the real face of the DRI improvements out there. Comptroller position has started interviews today, and we'll move forward with the process. Most likely this will be a city manager appointment. So hopefully we'll go through some of the interview process, keep Amy in the loop, and then finally pull on. We got some great candidates there too. I think we've been fortunate both through the city manager search and with the comptroller search, so we're going to have some good candidates in place there. The Council Green Committee and Engineering are looking at solutions to get better control of weeds in public areas. It seems to be one of our issues. We put a ban on synthetic pesticides, and based on that, we have kind of gone backwards a little bit in control of weeds. We're looking at a steamer unit that really hasn't come to fruition. So now we're taking a step back, and we're getting some input from the Green Committee, from Cornell, and from staff to be able to make some changes to that and hopefully improve what we have right now. It's a little bit unsightly. Solid waste ordinance is next on our focus. Staff has provided their input, outreach to current and possible haulers by providing the current ordinance and requesting their input for changes is underway. Council will take this information, we'll have a work session and provide a badly needed update to that ordinance because we've had some battles lately with roll-offs and who can do what inside the city limits. Right now, it's currently limited to 4 haulers. So we're running into some challenges there. And some of the services on some of the current haulers has been deficient. So we're hoping to make a change there to possible improvement.
Did you receive the letter from a joint letter from?
Yeah.
Oh, is it okay if I talk about it?
Yeah, you can talk about it.
We're gonna be
He just
sending you a
hasn't
letter.
received it
How's that? The LDC and the IDA met, marketing group met actually twice now. And we've talked about the need for a development person within the city that would be a city employee. And so we put together a letter, Tracy kind of put it together and a number of us signed it. As many as were available signed it. From the BID was also included, all 3 groups.
I'm still waiting to hear if they've approved it. That's why he hasn't gotten it yet.
Okay, all right. There's still some signatures. Anyway, to put it in the budget for next year, I know you're going to be reviewing that shortly, and we thought that would be useful for all 3 groups to have someone to lean on within the staff. So you'll be receiving that letter. I was going to ask you if you had a response for it yet, but we'll let you get the letter first. The other issue that I'm was interested in is the zoning, rezoning or the new codes for the zoning. And if that's going to be on the agenda at the city council soon, there's some items, and the reason I say that there's some items that, again, this joint group of the LDC, BID, and IDA there's some items that we would like to make some recommendations also on some of the zoning. I know the planning board has also got some questions about the current draft, which I realize is rather old. I mean, it's been kind of sitting dormant for about a year now, but is that going to come on the agenda soon?
So, yeah, the zoning, we should see that at the end of Q3, beginning of Q4 somewhere, and they're trying to wrap that up. We had a stumbling block with some change in personnel there.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that was some of the challenges, but my suggestion would be to provide any input you have on the current proposal so that we can kind of weave that in.
Exactly.
If it makes good sense. You know, what I'm telling everybody is it's been multiple years since we've done a zoning update. We're trying not to get so involved that we get so encumbered with the changes that we try to make it perfect as we roll it out. So what we might see is a rollout just to get things moving and then, going through some modifications as we go through that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a big move for us. And we don't want to kind of just bog it down and just keep pushing out. We want to get past it.
Okay.
The economic development, because I'm reading between the lines on that one. It's something we've discussed. It's something we feel is extremely important, and we know we have a gap there. I've been looking at some of the marketing literature and going back and look at the videos. I think that where we're headed with that, where everybody's headed with that, makes a lot of great sense. And I think the opportunity to put something in the budget is going to be there. Really want Amy's input on that. I think we need her to be a driving force there. We had a previous position of a comptroller and assistant to the city manager. We're thinking maybe we can move around some funds and have a comptroller, city manager, and maybe use some of those funds for economic development as we move forward. So that's kind of what the discussion is.
That would be great. Well, we know it's timely, all these things. So that's why we wanted to get some funding.
Okay.
Thanks. Any questions, other questions of Steve?
Would it be all right if we talked about the city wastewater now too? Well, since he's going to have to be soon.
Sure. Does that make
Is that
sense? All right. There's some new business that we're concerned about the city wastewater infrastructure. Again, because it impacts development that we might be seeing before us. I know there was a grant that was, I read that.
Yeah, so I talked to Joe about this last week just to get up to speed, because obviously this is the second time it's coming up in front of us that the issues might be hindering development, and that hinders what we're trying to do here and some of the initiatives that we're looking forward to. So I know the city had applied for the WIA grant, didn't get that, but then I know you guys also just voted to approve the bid to do the Marsh Creek updates. So that's happening, that's great. But then I know we still have issues with the wastewater plant as well and being at capacity. So I don't know. I know the city's working on it, but it's still a concern, for us for development. So.
It's probably one of our most serious concerns. And we did pass resolutions Wednesday night to upgrade Marsh Creek and try to improve what capacity we have left, the ability to deliver to that capacity that we have left. I was talking to Ryan Wallace, in an interesting conversation he had, because he has some developments going on. He has more developments he'd like to do. I think that the challenge there is the major improvements that we're going to need for future economic development growth is going to take time and money. I don't think it's not anything we can't accomplish, because everybody considers it important. Working with the town, working with state and federal officials to try to see what we can do to expedite that. I think that's going to be the big reach out. It'll probably be one of the highest priorities that our new city manager will have on her agenda to be able to work for and reach out to. We know we can't do it alone. It's going to have to be a joint effort. And what I'm trying to temper everybody that wants to increase this capacity as quick as possible is to understand it just doesn't happen overnight, but it is something we consider extremely important. I think the interesting thing, because we've done wastewater treatment upgrades in the past, we thought we were ahead of the game. We were looking at future economic development and thought we were building enough capacity for that. And I think the fortunate part is we've gone well beyond what we thought was going to be the needs and requirements for that. So here we are facing kind of good problems, but they're serious problems. So.
Do we have the current capacity for the Legion project or not?
Yes.
We do.
Yes, and that's
we can bank on that.
oh
Right?
yes, yeah.
All right, because as I mentioned that concern before, I mean, we go forward with that with all the public opinion, et cetera. We don't want to, fall back on us. Oh, you didn't plan for that, and bingo, then everybody looks like an idiot.
Yeah, Rick, there's some arguments there, because some people feel that they should have priority over capacity. And of course, it's city, town, outside municipalities, whoever might be using our systems. And what the team has done is they have current capacity that they know is coming online. Then they have proposed capacity, and then there's more capacity out there that people are still talking about. So the Legion is in that current capacity view. There's also some proposed capacity that we know is eminent, that's in our current capabilities. But it's that one that's out there just a little bit further that are strong possibilities, but they aren't just set in stone yet, that are going to be running into the headwinds that the capacity might not be there.
Because we've always, for years, I've been on this board for a long time. And one of the strong points that we had as arguments for development here was we had capacity for water and wastewater, And like you said, obviously with things that have been happening and going on, we're getting to the upper limits of that. But it's always been something that I felt comfortable about. And it's only now that I'm obviously not feeling too comfortable, especially when, the potential for other things to come online all of a sudden or to develop. And then to have to turn things away would be terrible. And I think that the emphasis to council really needs to be made in that that's infrastructure, and that, that's the capacity. When you build that capacity, you really, really open the doors for that development, et cetera. And I'm a big one for infrastructure and infrastructure improvements. And, nobody wants to pay more tax dollars, obviously, but on the same token, for infrastructure, it's important, and you can see and know it's there for the future. So, we can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, it is critical. And I think what it's making us do is selectively look at projects a little bit differently, which is kind of good in some ways. And also looking at how we can become more efficient with current demands in the system. So there are opportunities. We have inflow and infiltration issues that we've tried to correct in the past. So being more efficient, number one, being a little more selective in projects as they come forward, number two, and putting as much pressure as we can on increasing capacity. You know, it was, and you might be able to help me here, but a district, when we're in the court system with the town, the judge told us that we started to need to look at a water and sewer district. And that was important. So I think, you know, those might be some of the leverage points we'll be able to use moving forward.
I know that years ago we did the city was checking on inflows into the system that weren't necessary. You know, some, you know, runoff water, et cetera, and things of this sort as going into the sewer system that or into the wastewater treatment plant that didn't need to be there. And I didn't know whether that's something that needs to be relooked at again or not. I mean, so some of the capacity that's there, is it from water that shouldn't be going there and should be going into the regular, you know, drain system and not into, you know, wastewater? I don't know.
Got a good memory, Rick, because we did make improvements there.
Yeah.
In fact, the most recent construction on Lafayette, when they did that, they found some connections that they were able to modify. But the challenge is you're going into people's houses. And we did this reverse smoke thing to try to make sure we knew who was connected and who was connected properly or improperly. So we made some improvements there, but that's a difficult one to correct 100%.
Right.
Right. Any other questions of the mayor while he's here?
Yeah, because I'm gonna run out the door. Just a quick one, the development at the Gateway. Can you guys give me an update on what?
Yeah,
Would you
we
like
can
to
do that right now.
I
It's
don't
kind of.
know. Would you like to do that? I don't know.
We're tearing up the agenda here.
It is the next item on the
Okay.
agenda, so if you want to stick around, we'll.
Yeah, I'll
Give
see.
you our current update, which is not too much updated, but a little bit.
So the subsurface investigation that was done last year turned up some higher levels of contamination in one portion of the parcel. And going through the DEC, they requested that we create a remediation plan for that. So what we need to do today is look, we got 2 quotes to do an initial phase of work towards that remediation. This phase would be delineating that contamination. So we know exactly where that, where the edge of that is, and we can remediate only what needs to be remediated. And then developing a remediation plan, which will be submitted to the DEC for approval prior to the remediation work happening. So we got 2 quotes for this from Plumlee and CHA. They were substantially similar. CHA had a couple more things delineated, but I don't think they make a huge difference in the final product necessarily. And there was about an $8,000 difference between the 2 quotes. The LDC looked at these quotes on Wednesday, and they did approve moving forward with Plumlee as the low bid, given that the scopes weren't terribly different. And both have a similar timeline. We'd be looking at sometime in July, probably start date, and then a remediation plan going to DEC in early to mid-September is what they're anticipating. So their timelines are also very similar in that regard. And then that would need to get approved by DEC, and then we'd need to work out the actual remediation plan, who's doing what with the remediation, which might be some combination of outside contractors, the developer, maybe the city helping out, and to see how we can manage those costs, because to hire an outside contractor is probably going to be prohibitively expensive. But this first stage is going to be required no matter what happens moving forward. The developer is still interested, so there's not a problem there at this point, but this is the next step.
One of the numbers in Plumlee's, it just jumped out at me, was it 160,000? Is that?
That included the proposed actual remediation.
Okay.
We can't know for sure what that looks like until the plan is done, but that was what they estimated that might be if you were to hire out to a contractor to do
Looks
it.
like the remediation would be about equivalent to the sale price.
The amount of it, yeah.
Pretty close.
Which is why, exploring options. Matt outlined this very well at the LDC meeting the other day, that there may be options or services available to reduce that cost, either if the developer has to excavate a portion of that piece anyway. Maybe there's a deal to be made there, or if there's some in-kind services that we can access, there might be some options that make it a little bit more palatable, but we won't know that until we actually have the remediation plan.
So we're looking at phase one, that's going ahead with phase one, the proposal, right?
Yep.
12.5. What it is?
It's actually, so Plumley, so one is a little over 31,000 and the other one is almost 40,000
For phase one.
for the first phase of this, up to submitting the remediation plan to DEC.
Has there been any discussion about the tie to the foundry contamination in this site? Or is it a different type of contamination?
It's a
So
different type of contamination.
Yeah.
It's petroleum contamination. Yeah.
Okay. That makes
Yep.
sense.
the DEC's feeling was that it probably came from on site.
Quite a few buildings.
On-site?
Napa building was there. There was probably a variety of different businesses throughout its life cycle.
Finding is that in Geneva, there was a gas station on every single corner.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Congrats on the city manager. Great hire.
Yeah.
Good job.
Take care.
Thank you.
So we'll come back for that motion that was just explained. Unless, why don't we just,
You can finish it up.
yeah, okay. So the environmental services under new business. Since Tracy's already kind of explained that we do have those two quotes in front of us for just the phase one to determine what the extent of the contamination that's going to have to be taken care of. It's just the southwest corner of the property. That's kind of by the traffic light, if you will, that corner. And it didn't seem like a very large spot, but apparently they're covering all their bases. So anyway, there will be a motion. Let's see, is it in here? Do I have it? Is it? No, I guess that's not a resolution, just a motion. All
Just a
right.
motion,
So I
yeah.
need a motion to approve, and we will go with a little bidder to follow LDC's lead.
I just have a couple
They're splitting this fee with them.
Well, I have a couple questions. So with regards to history on this project, how much skin do we have in the game as of today? Like, we purchased the property, is that what we did on the corner?
And some demo.
We did the demo, but then there was an additional property that was acquired or no?
Yeah.
To take up the whole corner, right? So how much money do we have in this thing in total so far? And here's what I'm getting at, you guys, is if we take a look at all the estimated costs, and I understand we can subsidize some of this stuff, maybe through the developer, whatever the case is, what is going to be the ROI on this? If we're going to move forward, are we just going to spend 40,000 on this and then not have an opportunity to even have this deal come to fruition? Does that make sense?
I don't know if we have an accounting. I mean, it goes back a long time. There was a number of parcels that kind of were acquired over a period of time.
Are we going to put in $300,000 to sell a property for 150 is my question. You know, I mean, I don't know what the scope of the deal
We
is.
have an account.
The building was, the house was like 62,000 or 72,000, whichever one we had in there. Remember that, and then we had that, and we had an option on it for a couple of years, but the option we exercised it.
And we had some expenses taking it down.
And then you had that and total, but of course that was split between LDC and IDA for that. The prior acquisition of that corner property, I don't remember.
Do you remember, man?
I don't.
What is the sale price to the new developer?
It's a couple $100,000 for sure. It's like
250, was it?
yeah, I was gonna say 250.
That was 250 or 260.
And it's not like, we're not gonna make, and what's the sale price? We're not supposed, this is live. We're not supposed to talk about it. Because that's confidential information.
Sure.
The sales price exceeds that. But since this money has been kind of spent over probably 4 or 5 years anyway, piecemeal.
Well, the question
But now this is now going to push it way above what our break even would be.
right. And the question that I had in the last meeting that we sat here with was, you've already made an acquisition on one property and demoed it. If this is going to cost $250,000 to do this work, why not look at the other properties as far as acquisitions and demo and just scoot the project away from the corner by, what is it, 30 feet? I don't know. I mean, that would be the offset. Because right now on the tax roll, those properties are valued at $55,000 that are butted up against it. So if you're ripping it down for 100 instead of putting $250,000 into fixing it, I mean,
Be
does that make
interesting
sense?
to know. I see where you're headed. It'd be interesting to know if the DEC would let us re-subdivide the parcel. Basically what the DEC is going to say and has said is you can't develop on this parcel until you do the cleanup. And so.
Well, that's something we could, once we find out how big that area is, it could be smaller than they're estimating. It could also be larger. I think that would in fact help us at least identify if that's a possibility. I also know that the site plan is because it's a drive-through circumstance and the access to the roads and stuff like that. They need, again, it depends how big that section is going to be, but there's a need for that corner. That they would have to change the setback and everything to get away from that corner if they weren't to build on it. But it's a good idea.
Well, I would just like to understand that before.
I think it's something that,
that's all.
if we would go ahead with this phase one, at least identify it, and then that would be a discussion that we could have with the developer if in fact they would be willing to do that. But then what do we do with the property that we own?
Yeah.
Even if you re-subdivide it, you're gonna end up with a piece of land that.
Anyway, it's something to explore, but why don't we vote on spending the money? It's $30,000. I didn't call
A
that
little
one.
bit is 31,200.
Okay. So any other discussion about it before?
Well, just with the IDA, I mean, obviously, we need to be somewhat solvent, obviously, to be able to help new development that comes here. Our goal isn't to make money, but in the same token, we're looking to generate tax dollars for the city for years going forward. And so therefore, what happens to you just made that comment, I made that last week, that pretty much the cost of REBA is going to eat up any payback that we were going to have from the money that we've put into this property. And it just, I would say that's not totally unheard of when we've had economic development in the city and other areas throughout the city over the years, where our, dollars that came to IDA back to IDA were dwindled, but we got the development done. We've got something on the tax rolls and we were generating income for the city.
Understood, yeah.
So just so you know, it's, we're quote, not a money-making organization, but we do like to be able to have some funds so that we can do things like this and whatever.
How are we funded? How is IDA funded? Is it through
Administrative fees.
administrative fees?
Pilots.
But none of the tax dollars go into supporting this organization? Okay. So, and again, if we're gonna show a negative on the balance sheet of, let's say, round numbers, $10, but this is gonna generate taxes that is gonna give us back $6, it's still a delta. And that's the part that I just don't have my mind around as far as understanding that. So.
For me, I think it's considering the full cost benefit analysis, like we've done with the pilot projects of what are the jobs, what is the other money that's going to be brought into the community because of this development. So it's not, cash on cash, it's not an ROI, it's not a cash on cash ROI for the agency, but for the city as a whole over time. The ROI is.
Do we know what the ROI is on this over time then for this new project?
I don't think it's one that we've looked at because there's.
Right, so that's my question is like, if we're gonna make it a judgment or an assessment on it, we need to understand the full scope of what it is that we're voting on, right? So if for me, I'm just talking about me personally, if I was gonna spend money at my house to say, hey, look, I'm gonna go ahead and do this work and I'm gonna spend $40,000, I'd like to understand what the benefit is in the back end in whole, so I can make that judgment. And that's just me personally, but
without putting the money into at least this phase,
Right.
we can't have any
Understood.
figuration. So in other words, there are things, and it's happened before, where we've had to put money into something and then found out in the end, okay, well, but there's a risk involved in each particular situation, and so it's a little risk putting the $31,000 into this initial phase, but without it, we don't have, we don't have the information necessary to even consider what you're talking about.
But is this a second opinion? Didn't we have something similar done a year ago or no? What was the work that was done initially to identify the problem?
This is honing in on the actual area
Site,
that needs to be remediated and then creating a plan to remediate, which was not done previously. And so
Understood.
this is additional.
Building
work.
on the work.
It's building on the work that was done previously.
Wasn't there an effort to convince the DEC to let us proceed as we were? I thought there was an effort by the.
Yeah, that letter came back. They did respond to that.
Right.
And this took this action that Tracy had to
That's the
go.
reason for this. So there was an argument that we've done enough, that we know where it is, let us proceed. The DEC is their want is to ask for more. And it's irritating as a former consultant that does these things with the DEC. You would argue, you would say, let us just pave over this. We'll never see this. It doesn't infiltrate. Doesn't matter. They just want what they want. It's tough. It's a difficult situation, but
Well,
we
we're
have to deal
also,
with it.
we're also hurt to some degree because of all the remediation that's being done from the old foundry. So it's been on the forefront of the DEC. So they're looking at, plus the age of our city and the number of things that were here years ago that crop up a lot, unfortunately.
And that's another, I'm sorry, Rick.
No.
That's another opportunity when we do get remediation numbers to try and piggyback a Labella, some Labella support there. They're already mobilized, they're already on the site, they're already digging, they're already containerizing, they're doing all this stuff right now as a matter of course. So we could see if we can drive the cost that way as well.
They still got work to do.
Yeah.
It's another
Continuation.
firm, Labella. If you've heard of it.
I've not.
Okay. Other consultant.
And Jason is trapped in the age old. I mean, it's a real question, right? When should the IDA intervene and to what degree? And the question is, would the private market pick this up without it, right? Would this have developed without it? But when we got involved, that building had sat empty for about 10 years and it was a horrible, I'd rather look at the faded for sale sign today than what was sitting there, and the U-Haul guy was parking his trucks over there and so the private market didn't act for 10 years. And maybe this is why, to that point, there was an open still report on the site. And so, will this catalyze? And then to Jason's point, at what cost? And is it worth it? And I think it wouldn't be difficult if we had the inputs, which we do, we just dig it up, get the inputs on the sale price, on the acquisition cost and the carrying costs and everything that we've done so far, and then run it against the project and see what the return
My
is.
mind works in like a displacement method all the time. So if I'm going to spend 40 grand there, is it worth it? Or should I spend it somewhere else to make it a better use of our dollars? That's really my question. Is this throwing good money after bad where we can use it to be useful somewhere else? And I don't know what that other project is, but it could, rear its head in the next 6 months. Who knows?
Yeah. The question then becomes, what do you do with this site? Because you can't do anything with this site until you spend the 30 and the cleanup cost. Otherwise, the site sits.
Any other discussion? Like to move on? We could? All right. So I'd like to motion to approve the professional service contract, of which we'll be responsible for approximately $15,000, correct?
Yeah.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We'll go ahead and get the phase one started and see where this moves on from there.
LDC already approved.
Okay, let's go back up to the IDA projects. Tracy, do you have any?
So just a couple of really quick updates and one clarification. I just want to be clear that when we're talking about a phase one here, for the record, it's not a phase one ESA I am using the term phase one to delineate what the scope of this project is. So anyways, okay. American Tower closed. Money was sent to Harris Beach, so we're just waiting to get that check from them. And so that is taken care of. Things are recorded, done. All that needs to happen now is when the check comes in, I'll distribute it based on the percentages for the park partnership and get that recorded in the books. And
Did we find out anything about Geneva growth? Whether it
yes,
exists?
it does not exist. The percentages were rejigged and I did get the new percentages.
Okay.
So I
was
do
gonna
think
say,
the
that hasn't
IDA.
been around in a while.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
bought them out
Yeah,
a bunch of years ago. Yeah.
okay, so I thought that.
Yeah, so the IDA's percentage, I think, is a little bit higher than I originally thought, but I did get those from Erica recently.
And we are keeping some in the park account.
Yes, I think it was
15%
15%.
was what we agreed,
Right.
About $90,000 is gonna stay there.
which makes sense, a lot of sense.
Okay,
And then we talked about Gateway. Just as a heads up, I'm going to be starting the budget process. So we scheduled a meeting of the finance committee for later this month. And I'd like to I'll be bringing a 2022, 2023 budget to the next meeting for approval so we can get that submitted to the state on time, August 1st. So those are the big ones. Trinity is plugging along with what they need to do. We're still anticipating a fall closing for them. So it might not hit this fiscal year. It might actually hit next fiscal year for your admin fees.
They're not starting construction until after that.
Yeah, so we're gonna line the IDA closing with their construction financing. But they need to get through the, like the SHPO phase 2 and those other things before they can get the construction financing.
and Geneva on the Lake project is got pushed at least a year. The new owner is
2023 or something.
at least, yeah, he's putting a lot of money into actually cleaning up and painting the building, and not much has been done on the property for a number of years. And so he's kind of focusing on upgrading the existing. And I know they're still planning on another hotel on the site and an event center of some sort. But clearly those plans have been put on hold. He didn't realize how much he had to spend to get operational there. I mean, they're still in operation, but they're going to slowly go through and renovate all the existing rooms. They expanded the dining room space and added a bar. And like I said, painted the outside, did some work on the outside. So I think that's his plans for this year. And then I think he's going to revisit it next year. And we'll see how we fit into those plans.
When we get to a new development that wants to come to town and we don't have the wastewater treatment plant capacity, I wonder if there's a way to say to them, if you want to come here, you must pay a portion of the new improvements to the treatment plant. I've heard of that happening before, with some big dollar proposal. They would understand that they have to do that. The pilot could be adjusted to accommodate that. Maybe that's something we should consider. I've heard of it, but I haven't seen one in practice.
Yeah, so a concept that works in that scenario is something called PIF, pilot increment financing, where new infrastructure is needed for a particular development to go through. The closest one to us is actually on North Shore of Canandaigua, when they built the first phase of Pinnacle North. They recorded a pilot, and the pilot fees were dedicated to the infrastructure that needed to happen. That soil, like our soil, it's mush. So there needed to be some significant structural work done down there. So it's possible, it can happen, and it's legal, and something we should be mindful of, certainly. Just a matter of, our issue will always be timing. If someone shows up and says, we want to build here, and we need a 25% increase in wastewater capacity, it's probably 3 to 4 years. to bring it online. Because it has to be permitted and constructed and designed. So it can be 3 years anyway before you really realize a huge increase in capacity. So that's why the mayor and the council have prioritized it. And so it's just for us to keep the heat on.
Yeah.
I think this moves nicely into the marketing committee discussion. Because this came up when the LDC was talking about the Geneva made proposal on Wednesday. So if you don't mind moving on.
Yes, go on to the next.
So on the agenda here and included in the packet was a proposal for the Geneva made implementation. The idea was to split those costs or share those costs among multiple partners, the IDA participating 20%, which is about $12,000. And the LDC was also a partner, and we had a conversation with them on Wednesday. And as they thought about it more, they had some concerns about basically what happens if this marketing effort actually leads to lead generation. It would be great, but can we accommodate it without an economic development person and without wastewater capacity? So they actually put this on hold until they could get some more clarity around what the trajectory is for this capacity and a potential person to be a proactive economic development agent for the city. And, so we said we would bring those concerns to this group, which kind of comes into the conversation we've already been having of, okay, what happens now? I think generally speaking, these types of marketing campaigns, they are going to take time to start generating leads, but it was a concern that was raised there. And, they've asked that we approach the city about having someone come to one of their meetings and talk about what is the deal with infrastructure and what's the trajectory for that. But there was also at the marketing committee meeting, there was, some discussion about, we have this brand, we built this brand, and now it's sitting there and we're going to lose the momentum if we don't do something with it. There's no one to do anything with it. So this proposal is really the only way, having someone do this implementation outside a third party is really the only way to continue that momentum and get it moving. So that was really the impetus for bringing this forward is if we wait 6 months or a year to do anything with this brand, it's going to be stale. And that's a lost investment too. So, and I don't know if you have anything to add here.
Did the county who's paying for, or the county IDA is paying the lion's share of it, did they pass it?
The idea is to bring it and get the local support first and then bring it back to the county. They wanted to see the local support.
Okay, so they want our buy-in before they jump in. It seemed like a pretty, I kind of, when I heard the presentation, I kind of questioned it, why, we're not really ready for this. Just, we keep putting it reminded me of the website. We paid to get that, I'm sorry, not the website, the video. We paid to get that video made. It's a great video. It just sits there unused, untapped. It's on the website, hard to find it. It's certainly not highlighted at all. No one point, it's a nice piece of marketing material, but not certainly underutilized, and maybe not worth the expense. So I thought it was that, but I think what was pointed out is this momentum, that we've already kind of, this much work has been done. And if we don't continue just implementing it, it would be, it would be lost. I didn't think it was a very heavy lift. $1,000 a month seemed to be a reasonable amount to keep the momentum going. But on the other hand, it'd be nice if there was someone that could manage how that's handled, which would be that city staff person, hopefully, if they're able to do that. But that wouldn't be, I think that was the other argument. Well, if that staff person comes on board, it wouldn't be till certainly after the first of the year. And then, what do we do for this 6-8 months before that happens? That loss of continuity. But it has been sitting dormant since November. Yeah, so it's been 6 months already. So
haven't we tossed around the idea of using an intern or trying to find an intern from the college?
Um,
And something in the middle, maybe that can get us through these next few months to keep everything kind of going a little bit and keep it out there until we really find out some.
Well, they still would have to be managed. I mean, some of it, and I do agree, some of it has to do with the new city manager and kind of and that was the argument that, well, that's going to take some time for that person to get up to speed,
Right.
for her to get up to speed and to kind of handle that. I don't.
To some degree, you're gonna need some push from the city manager for this too. I mean, and
Yes.
we're kind of in that little limbo period where a couple more weeks before she starts, 3 weeks before she starts, and then getting her feet wet. I'm sure she's trying now to catch up if she's anybody else going into a new position. But I think, you know,
To that point, I think we should invite her to our for our July meeting. She's officially on board June 23rd, 21st, something like that. So she would be, in the saddle, so to speak, at our next meeting. So maybe she could join us at least, and we could voice our concerns or kind of bring her up to speed of what we do. Now, obviously coming from Tompkins County, she's aware of IDAs and what they are involved with. So I don't think this is going to be 101 development 101 for her, but it's going to be, I think if we have concerns about the sewage, the wastewater, then we need to bring that up, the development person, bring that up and make sure that it's on her agenda along with the city council.
it'd be nice to be able to provide something to her before just a point thing of, what's going on the IDA or what's on our
I agree.
agenda.
Would you be
I
able
hate
to kind
to
of,
have somebody come in here, and there's this and there's this, and
Yeah, right.
without her having a sheet before her saying, okay, thanks for sending me the
Educate
list
her
of
first,
things a
right?
little bit.
why
So
don't we,
that I can anticipate what you're gonna be asking me or what you're gonna want. me
Right.
to-
so Tracy, maybe you could send her an invite and then say, this is what we'd like to discuss. And it doesn't have to be a long document, but
Right, no, just
But
a bullet thing, just a
Right.
bullet.
Yeah, just bullets.
I think that's a great idea. But to speak to that, I think that these efforts, they're all intertwined. It's not just one thing. It's two or three things. And I think it's great that we're trying to not just sit here, and wait for people to come to us to ask for help, that we're going to be proactive. But how we're proactive sometimes can, we are a volunteer group. We're not, there's only so much we're able to do, although Lowell does an awful lot. But we can, it's just, it would be great to have someone that could spearhead all of these efforts, because I think all the groups have the same concern. That we might set an initiative, but it falls flat. It falls flat because it's underutilized.
Sounds as if the mayor and the city council are interested in having that person. So maybe we'll get him or her.
Correct. It's been a discussion for a while. It's not, it wasn't too long ago that we did have, wasn't Valerie 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like
Yeah,
that?
about probably 10.
10 years ago, there was a person that was the executive director here that worked for the city that was paid to do development work. Specifically, it just kind of got washed out. Matt stepped up and said he'd take it, but now we're at a different place and maybe we should consider it. I think there was talk about whether or not the new city manager would be able to take on that role, or how much of her new job would be part of that. Was that part of the discussion in the search committee?
Not really, not that I remember, no.
Okay.
But she acknowledged her ability to do it. And that's why we shortlisted to her and one other person.
I think that's part of why that's been kind of put off until, this city manager position was settled and kind of find out what, do a needs assessment. But we know there's a need. It's just who's going to do it, whether it's a new staff person or not, or whether it can be folded into the city manager job.
It seems as though she could, if I were her, I would want to hire somebody to work right near me and know exactly what they're doing, just as another employee,
Sure.
directly to her, because that's so important. she would want to know every detail too. I would.
One of the questions I have is, so I'm on the website, Geneva made, so we're targeting food and beverage growth and development in the region or in our city. One of the things that always I see in every market that I work in is hospitality groups, hotel groups, more importantly, collect an occupancy tax, right? We collect this tax. We're basically tax collectors. We give the money back. In this case, I think it's the Finger Lakes Tourism Alliance gets the money and then they market, right? In a lot of ways, they market museums, they market restaurants, things on those lines. How come we don't propose something along the lines of restaurants doing a similar collection that would help boost their business, help support them, help pay for somebody to be a part of that collaboration, but also help grow their business? Because everything about this website is to help them grow and it's teamwork and so forth. But just feel like that would be an easy way to go ahead and see that happen. And the reason I say that now is I work in Martha's Vineyard, I work in Provincetown, and these are markets that are doing that. They're collecting incremental items on a bill in a restaurant, and it's going back to support the local economy for marketing and things along those lines. Nobody questions it. Nobody has any concerns about it. It's becoming part of a norm in a lot of other places. Maybe that could help, subsidize some of the costs to do that and give us that full-time person. I don't know.
Is that how BID gets its revenue?
It's a property tax assessment.
Okay.
Or a property assessment.
Okay, so it goes through the city.
Does.
Yeah.
Paid on your tax bill and the city collects it. New York is, I always chuckle about this cynically. New York is what they call a home rule state. And the theory is that municipalities should have the ability to make such determinations. The reality is that they give you as much home rule as they want to give you. And so the ability to impose a tax is heavily regulated at the state level.
If it's not a tax, if it's an administrative fee, what if it's, is that?
It's a good question. I like the idea, and I love the
A tourism fee, perhaps,
thread the needle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's something we can talk to NICOM and the Economic Development Council about, figure out what our options are there.
I can get some samples from other markets just so we have something to go by.
Yeah. And particularly, I mean, one of the hotel tax in Geneva anyway, there's a city tax and there's a county tax. The county tax does go, a big chunk of it goes to the Finger Lakes Visitors Connection, the county tourism agency. I think that might be state law that says you have to have a formula that you direct that money to tourism. The city tax predates me by a couple of years, but in talking to people who were involved, Chris Iverson and others who were involved at the time, the original idea behind the occupancy tax, the hotel tax, was to promote tourism. And that money ended up just getting swept into the general fund. So you'd want to build in some protection. The restaurant owners would want some commitment that this is not just going to be a general fund tax.
It's not money coming out of their pocket, though. It's just they're tax collectors, right? It's just at the end of the day, they run the report and then they write the check. So it's just money that has to sit to the side. So,
but the debate that typically happens, like when I did first get to Geneva and we were in second year of collecting that occupancy tax, hotel operators in the city were saying, if I walk, 100, if I go up to Jet Meta's place in the town, the tax is 3%. If I stay at the Ramada, the tax is 6%.
you should pay a higher tax percentage if you want to be by the water.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a value, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
it's.
But the Fairfield, a better example then, the Fairfield pays 6 and the microtel pays 3. And so these guys saw that as, and again, they're business people, so they should be hedging. And the hedge was, can we stay competitive at that? Are we going to have to cut our rates so that you're paying the same? I shop for hotels all the time. It doesn't factor into my decision whatsoever.
It doesn't even appear on your radar.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So
Now, parking fee is another one. That one will get you at hotels.
yeah,
You end up $52, you never saw it coming.
yeah.
Mhm.
But we can research that and see what the options are. I think it's a great idea.
I'm going to guess that maybe we should shelve this for a month anyway, particularly to follow LDC's lead, but just look into a little bit further, maybe test the city managers in a position if she, I'm sure she doesn't have one yet, but just kind of see if we get some sort of read from there. Everyone agreed just to kind of push it off another month anyways. Why don't we keep it on the agenda to do that for next?
The LDC requested that Joe Venuti come and talk about it. Maybe that's a better conversation to be had in front of both groups. And so however we can schedule that, maybe we send reps from each group to meet with Joe rather than try to have him come to the IDA and the LDC board meetings
I think
independently.
that would be a good idea.
Irene's
Irene's going to go for sure.
Well, so maybe what we'll do is invite him to the marketing committee meeting and then invite the full boards to attend that marketing committee meeting.
Yeah, I think it's good that if we gather as much information before we
And that way he
take
only
too
has
much
to do it
action.
once.
Okay, we're running out of time here, and the next portion, if I could move on to the policy adoption. There's a resolution that was handed out, and there was a number of pages that
Yes, sorry.
were interesting to read, to say the least.
If you love policy.
And these are all necessary policies that the state is requiring, and some of these are new. They have some of them are things that we do need to put into our packet and then file with the state. Many of them, at least in my reading, read very boilerplate. Tracy did some research and she did not write all of this. She assured me she knew some place to go. But let me get to the resolution if I could.
Do you want this?
Basically, there's things about, oh, you got it right there. Thank you. Code of ethics seems to be fairly straightforward. I think everything in there seemed reasonable to me. You know, they want us to be honest brokers. Compensation and attendance that clarified. I think the attendance policy, we don't really have that problem here, but at least it clarified that, and compensation, it assured us that we're not getting paid. Conflict of interest, same thing, you know, pretty much boilerplate. Indemnification policy is good to have. You know, the city has our back on that. The extension of credit, we're not going to borrow money from here. Project recapture and termination policy. I think that's probably one of the more important ones that we have that is published, just in case one of our pilot programs goes south. We have the mechanism to recapture some of the money, or at least terminate it so it doesn't go forward. Sometimes recapture might be difficult, but at least we could stop it. And if you read that, it's pretty intensive. That's probably the bigger of all the policies here, in my mind, that it, you know, what are the reasons for it? Usually tied with jobs, or if something wasn't true in their application and it came back that we could terminate and recapture whatever monies they benefited from our granting them the pilot, essentially. And project property acquisition is pretty much just, you know, how we would, you know, that we're allowed to do that within these limitations. Uniform project evaluation policy is what we do now. We have that program, and for the cost benefit of each project. So I think all of them are nicely packaged. Are there any questions of it? And did I run through it too quickly? Is there anything else that you wanted to? This has to be published by when with Paris?
So these are just things that are supposed to be on the website and that we're supposed to have on file in case there's an audit from the comptroller or the ABO. This doesn't need to go into Paris or anything. It's just something that we should.
In case we get audited, okay. So the question would be, does everyone have read them through and feel comfortable voting on them? Or is it something that we want to do again next month? You're okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right, let's have them.
I like that recapture. I read that before I joined the board.
Yeah.
Good way to get
Yeah,
them
no,
back if they fail.
I agree. And thank you, Tracy, for being diligent at that. Okay, so this is a resolution. So I'll read the resolution and then we're going to adopt it, I guess, with a roll call vote, which will handle. A resolution of the Geneva Industrial Development Agency ratifying certain policy standards procedures in connection with the Public Authorities Accountability Act of 2005, the Public Authority Reform Act of 2009, and Chapter 563 of Laws of 2015. All right, and there are the Code of Ethics, Compensation and Attendance Policy, Conflict of Interest Policy, Defense and Indemnification Policy, Extension of Credit Policy, Project Recapture and Termination Policy, Property Acquisition Policy, and Uniform Project Evaluation Policy. All right, we'll call for a roll call vote.
A motion in a second first.
All right, you want that? All right, a motion to accept this resolution, second.
Second.
All right, Irene. All right, roll call. Here, I took your copy.
Nope, that's okay. RJ?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Irene?
Aye.
Lowell?
Aye.
And is absent. Jason?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye. All right, thank you. All right. The other review of policy was the change of, this is a draft policy to set up public hearings, open meetings law change. Now, you want to explain that?
So in the state budget, there is a provision to allow ongoing participation remotely in IDA meetings
Past June 14th, when the COVID executive order expires. In order to participate in that, the board will have to pass a resolution adopting a policy that outlines the circumstances in which board members are able to participate remotely. It has to be via video conference. The board still has to have a forum in person. But this does provide some flexibility if someone's traveling or has a childcare issue or needs to be at the office, whatever the case may be. So the draft policy is in the package, but what we actually need to do today is just make a motion to set a public hearing, because that needs to happen before we pass this policy. And my recommendation would be to have the public hearing at 8:30 on the day of our next meeting, have the public hearing, and then go into the regular meeting, pass the resolution. This does mean that we'll have to have attendance in person at the next meeting, because we'll be past the June 14th date, but not have this policy yet. But that doesn't seem to be a problem. So that would be my recommendation, is just to, have a motion to schedule a public hearing regarding the open meetings law resolution for remote participation in meetings.
Is the next meeting July 1?
July, I think it's 8th, July 8th.
Second,
It's the first Friday after the first Wednesday.
heard. Okay.
So it would be July 8th at 8:30 a.m. And I don't imagine having much comment on that, but of course, this would also allow,
You'll put the ad in the paper and all that, good at all? Okay.
this would allow the public actually to continue participating remotely as well.
Any questions about that? I guess not.
No.
It'll be on the agenda next month to vote on. IDA goals, Lowell, this is yours.
Well,
This was brought up last meeting too, right? I mean, we
I just read them real quick.
you read through it.
This.
I know it was a draft. When you wrote it, it was just kind of some
Yeah.
thoughts off the top of your head.
Winged it as things that I would like to see for the new community that I joined.
I think number 3, we're kind of doing that with the group meetings, the IDA, LDC, BID. I think that's great. That we're kind of starting to collaborate a little bit, which I think can and part of that group is going to do the development parcels, both residential and commercial. And again, who's going to do that, how we're going to gather that information, without necessarily a city staff person available to do that. It might be, but that's a discussion that we should put on the agenda with the city manager, possibly. That's one of our goals, is to find developmentable,
Developable. Yeah.
parcels. Okay.
I spoke to my neighbor, who's the architecture professor at Hobart and William Smith. And I also heard of another professor who would definitely be interested, and he would be real happy to have an intern, but the intern would probably want to get paid. Those are the things I learned. And because they're they're gone. We could
Right.
probably work on this maybe over the summer if I can contact that professor and see if we could set aside some funds for one of his Cracker Jack students who would want to take this on. They said that they thought that all the information you need is already on internet, and Google Earth tells you a lot. They could speak to the assessor to get any mapping that he has. So that would be a good exercise for a student if we could find one. So it's a thought.
We could probably, I mean, I would think we could handle that ourselves. We wouldn't need the LDC for that, although they've already kind of talked about it, but.
Can we employ somebody
Right,
as a agency, as a,
yeah.
I would think you'd want to do it as like a contract as opposed to an employment.
So it'd be like what, like a 1099 kind of thing, or
Yeah, or work it through the college as some sort of like a, although if they do it for credit, you can't pay them, right? If they have like a work study program or something and work it that way.
I guess if I could, I found work that was related to my future profession. Like I read deeds and did tax maps for 2 years. I worked as a maintenance man for a year. So those kinds of things would be really interesting, I think, if we found the right person.
The only thing is the internships they do come decent cost. Being a Hobart grad, I was approached to finance one. It was 25 grand. I don't know what they do under a circumstance like this.
I could just keep asking and find out
Yeah,
what their history is in doing that
yeah,
at the school.
yeah, and see what, I don't, anyway, that's my experience.
We used, a long time ago, we used to pay interns something like, this is 20 years ago, $10 to $15 an hour. They were happy and they could put it on their resume.
Yeah.
But now I'm sure it would be more.
I think I'm concerned about timing if they're available like now, you know, that by the time we got it together or consulted with the LDC, if we're going to involve them, it's kind of part of this group activity, part of the marketing thing. I don't know if we could pull it together that quickly. I mean,
Probably not.
Wouldn't this be another thing though that we might want to push off anyways or pause on because we don't have the capacity to?
well, I think it's something that should be put on the agenda for the city manager meeting or that there's that it could be a argument for why we need a development person so they could put that together and or get a someone from the colleges to help or something, but someone that would be the point person to manage that that effort of really putting down all these properties and parcels. I don't know if there's anything else that was on your list there that was.
The only couple of things that I remember anyway was to contact the current businesses and see how they're doing. Each of us take 4 or 5 and actually call them.
Well, and again, I hate to do this to the city manager, but it would be, I think it'd be great to share all these ideas and say, this is what we think we'd like to do, but we need some help to do that. Now, that as far as calling businesses, that would be one thing, but we need a list. We need to develop, a list of who those are. I mean, I suppose some of us that have been around a while could do it off the top of our heads, but you need to contact people. You'd want an organizational approach to it, not just, oh, I know that guy, I'll call him. And
Or maybe take a block and go door to door. But in addition to that, I thought a pamphlet that would identify all the resources that we can hand out.
again, you'd want to have content of what your visit is about. Just say how, instead of just saying how you're doing, it'd
Yeah.
be good to know what.
Know about this and
Yeah.
it'd probably be nice for us to have I'll be on the same page when we call these businesses.
Yeah.
So maybe we're asking the same questions or trying to get the same information, because then that'll better benefit us when we all come together and say, you know, how did this one respond? Well, this one responded this way. This one responded total opposite. Now, where's the disconnector between the businesses and this or that? So even if we had a little bullet point, kind of a list of, you know, kind of a script, if you will, not a script, but something that, you know, here's the target kind of questions,
It's a great idea.
information that we want to get. Then we can all use them because we're all asking the same questions and having the same discussion with all the area businesses.
Remember Bob Ananiah, who was president of PepsiCo, you know, the bottler in town. When he sat on the board here, he made that comment. He says, you know, I've been sitting here for 8 years or whatever it is. No one's ever called me to ask me how my business is doing. He says, we're talking to all these new people and all this stuff. And he said, I haven't heard from anyone from the city in years. So it speaks to exactly what you're saying is just because the business is doing well, it doesn't mean we shouldn't ask them how they're doing. So again, we need to, I think it's part of the marketing committee's task to fold that in, but maybe we could push the city manager to see what we can do to do that, or again, it just.
There was one other fun thing that I would have liked to do where I used to be, and we never did it, but was to award someone every year for a project that they're doing, either a renovation in one of our commercial buildings or even a complete house remodel.
Yeah.
You know, just some crazy little thing.
Who do you see?
Newspaper.
I understand the recipient side. Who do you see initiating it? Do you think it would come from the IDA? Or do you think it
I thought,
group? Or
I thought the IDA, if we all notice something in our neighborhoods, I've seen 2 incredible multifamily developments I can see from my front porch that people have spent $1 million now and not gotten any pilot or anything on their own money. They've come back into the city and they're renovating every apartment in their big buildings. And
One in the corner there,
yeah,
the blue.
yeah, it's sort of
Beautiful job.
Yeah,
Beautiful job.
yeah, it's Jerry Buckley.
From what I heard inside. now.
Yeah, he came back from,
It's Jerry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the other one across the street on South Main. He had a name now for his building, but he's renovated 8 apartments, probably at $100,000 each. And he's getting really good rents and people are lined up to live there.
That's great.
That's
good.
Yeah, and he showed me through 3 times, so.
I think to speak to your point, it's good to tell good stories like that.
I know.
You know,
Oh,
if you build it, they will come, right?
Well, I would be happy to head up that committee if you want to. And I would call a newspaper and I would have them come out.
Possibly, since all of these are good points, maybe we could include that in the letter too. It may be, you know, edited a little bit to the city manager, not that we're going to bombard her with all these ideas and stuff on date or week 3 of her job, but you know.
-3 weeks.
All right.
Immediately I was thinking of bid, but then I was thinking that's just a downtown business. But this would be more than that. You know, so I think it coming from us in this situation.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds interesting. It sounds very positive. The more we can put out there with coming with a positive.
Could we have a plaque?
And
Just have a nice plaque that they won.
Yeah.
And it's
That doesn't cost
expensive.
much.
And it mentions IDA, recognizing these things,
That might be good.
which gives us a little.
Well, we could certainly do it faster
We could use a
ourselves.
positive someday,
But,
you know, in terms of public comment.
all right, well, we've kind of gone over here.
Sorry.
I assume there's no unfinished business as far as a need for
That
executive.
Rose Soiree is on June 11th and it's at Pulteney Park. The Rose Soiree.
What's that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I don't really know what it is, but it's just called, it's celebrations of wine.
It was done here on Linden Street, but now it's moving up to Pulteney Park.
And they're going nuts
the
cleaning it up.
rosé-
It's usually my job. So
Yeah.
it's really good. Park is looking great.
Yeah, they've asked our church for using our parking
You've gone
two
before
areas.
with Brian down to Linden.
It's a nice social
Where I-
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
very nice event.
Very
An event, they're
well.
moving, it's a public park.
Several
They need
hours.
more room. They need
Got
more
it.
room
Thanks
for it than Linden Street.
And they advise us that you can't park on the street that day. So there'll be, I don't know where people are going to park.
They're parking at our church.
Oh,
We got the two parking areas, the south one and the one behind the church. They asked for use for them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
Special
cool.
meeting there.
It should be a nice
they'll
venue.
have bands and,
Oh, it's a great event.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a great venue. Are
Very
you guys
well attended.
participating? Not this year. Okay, well, I'm going to say motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting.
We're gonna have-
Something up there today also.
About the-
Yeah, they're
Around
going nuts.
spruce and like- I was looking for your head, but I said, oh, no, he's gonna be at the meeting.
I had my watering can up because they did put in flowers around the monument.
Uh-huh.
So I watered
All the
Oh.
signatures.
When is?
11th in the afternoon.
This is a.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nice pink shirt. You want to borrow mine?
It's.
You're gonna need it. That's how everybody dresses.
Clear. They don't.
I'll have to find one.
Last year, and it just says they did approve.
Well, I
Next
don't know. I'll be there.
I'll
So
be interested to see how. it goes.
Not
I'll probably be cleaning up
last year.
with the committee. So
So the next form is gonna say it has to be recaptured, so.
Yeah. They're pretty well organized.
yeah.
Yeah. I know we have not made it here, but of course I'm living the lake back